In this video, I'm going to show you how to make some awesome industrial terrain using only cardboard. Hey guys, welcome back to Eric's Hobby Workshop. I'm in a group on Facebook called the Necromunda Terrain Builders, and they have a quarterly build challenge. And this quarter, the challenge was to see what you can build with cardboard. Now the rules in this group aren't particularly stringent, and no one would care if you used materials in addition to cardboard, but I thought it'd be an interesting challenge to see what I can build using only cardboard and nothing else. And by nothing else, I am of course not counting glue, sand, paint, and whatever else I feel like using. But all the materials for the build are cardboard. Let's get to it.
Alright you guys, we're going to start this off with some graphics medium chipboard. This is the holy grail of crafting materials, or as I like to call it, Wylock board, as popularized by the legendary Wylock's Armory. So we're going to start with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of this, and we're going to, jump to something else. Nice editing, Eric. Guys, I cut out some footage there because I actually made too much stuff for this video, and the first thing I made is going to be featured in another video. But I'm going to start by making some greebly details here by cutting a piece of 1/4 inch chipboard and a piece of 1/8 inch chipboard, and then cutting those into short lengths and alternating short, long, short, long, short, long to make this piece here that's going to be a really nice vent. This was kind of the fun part about this project, is problem solving all the ways that you can use chipboard to make details, where normally I would rely on a bits box. Anyways, I used some corrugated cardboard here and square off a nice box, bracing the corners with some hot glue. And then I test fit the front, but I'm not going to attach the front yet because I am going to put a chipboard cladding on this. But not before I cut out my door hole. I cut the corners with a little bit of a bevel, I guess you'd call that there, to give it more of a futuristic silhouette. And then I make the same pattern on a piece of chipboard, make sure they fit nicely. Next, I'm gluing a bit of a recessed doorway backing. This will allow me to put my door recessed from the door frame, which will give a little bit more interest. Next, I'm cutting out a frame for the doorway itself. This is a little bit of relief that'll add around the doorway and give it sort of a nice little bit of industrial detail. When you don't have any bits to work with, you start realizing you have to embellish things on your own with some careful planning and more chipboard. The glue I'm using for most of this stuff, if it's not hot glue, is Aleene's Tacky Glue, which is the first time I've used it. It's kind of like a really thick white glue, but I really like it. I think I'm going to use it more. Next, I'm going to cut some cereal board here. This is a thinner cardboard, stuff that cereal comes in, at least here in North America. Can't speak for the rest of yous. But yeah, I'm going to draw some parallel lines here, and then using my ruler going to mark off some measurements to allow me to make a sort of toothed pattern to give the indication of one of those futuristic doors that slides closed from either side. And I thought that'd be a nice little detail here to make my door a little something special. So I cut that out with my Xacto blade. Make sure you have really sharp knives for this stuff. You'll get those nasty little corner pieces there, which I inevitably get. And then glue that on and clean up the glue if it oozes out before it dries, because it'll make a dry, hard bead that'll ruin your texture if you don't do it. Next, I use some more tacky glue to glue my chipboard facade on, and you're starting to see what I'm getting at here. I cut a few more pieces of cereal box, and I'm going to use this as cladding for the inside of the door frame where that horrible corrugated cardboard texture is. I really do not like corrugated cardboard as much as chipboard, but that's okay. I don't need to use too much of it because I got a big pack of chipboard. If you want your own big pack of chipboard, check the links in the description. I'll hook you up. You can kick back a little bit to the channel. Everybody's happy. So I glue that together with a little hot glue, and I have this nice boxy structure that's going to be the basis of my project here. I glue some more chipboard pieces to all sides of that cardboard just to cover those ugly corrugated corners and get some nice flat walls that'll paint up really nicely later and accent my details. Next, I'm going to make some stairs. As you can see, I made a grid here with the rise and run that I wanted. And then I cut out 4 of these diagonal strings, and on 2 of the 4 I cut the risers and the treads into the string to give it this nice notched look. Then taking another piece of chipboard, I think that was 1.5 inches across, I cut myself a bunch of nice little treads. And with these treads all cut up, I glue my strings to my other pieces, and then I can glue the treads into the strings and make myself a nice staircase. I started off by gluing the top step and the bottom step and waited for those to dry, because that way I wouldn't have to wrangle with a wet piece. But once I got all the stairs put in and wiped away the extra glue, I was left with quite a handsome little staircase. Next, I'm using a cardboard tube here, and I'm using some tape that's sort of a brown paper packing tape to cover all the seams, the spiral seam on the outside of the cylinder. And that is a much handsomer cylinder. Cut some strips and add some details to the cylinder. I've done this in previous videos, but this is another great way to break up this big cylindrical shape, is by adding these seams to it. And this gives it a little industrial vibe that'll give us some nice detail later on. I did sort of a double layer at the top, but that's going to get covered up anyways, but at this stage I didn't know that. That's kind of the joy of building improvisationally, is covering your own hard work later on. So I use my hot glue gun and I glue my structure down onto a full sheet of chipboard, and this is going to sort of bound in my project and make sure I don't make it too big, which I do have a tendency to do if I don't give myself some limits early on. Next, I glue 2 sheets of chipboard together and weigh it down with my nice roll of tape, and that's going to be the top of my structure. Let's add some details. So I made some little squares of chipboard and nicked the corners off to make a sort of interesting shape. And then I added some strips of chipboard to the corners, and this gives it a nice clad corner piece that makes it look like it's constructed out of something a little more interesting than, you know, a box of chipboard, which is what it is. And doing this is quite time consuming, and I knew that's what I would be getting into when I did this project, but I always surprise myself with how time consuming some of these things I choose to do are. Here I'm making a bunch of little girders. These are 1/2 inch pieces of chipboard. Now with these little girders, when I glue them to a piece of chipboard, I get a nice little means of constructing my own steel frame architecture. This is my favorite part about this project that I did, is sort of realizing the freedom that I can construct anything that I want, and I don't need to rely on either expensive plastic card or just finding the right pieces, hunting for bits. So I glue on my stairs here with some more Eileen's tacky glue. As you can see, that's a handsome staircase. Here I'm using 2 different types of glue because I am an absolute renegade of the crafting world. So I'm adding some more of these little girders around the outside of my platform just to hide the fact that it is in fact a thin layer of cardboard. Next, I'm going to use some paper straws. I live in New York where plastic straws are banned, and this is the first time I've had any affection at all for these paper straws, but they're really good for this, and they're really handy. So as you can see, I've coated it in that packing tape, and then I'm adding some little thin strips of cereal box with super glue to add some pipe fitting looking pieces. And I put them in a little box of chipboard here, along with some Q-tip sticks. Yes, Q-tip sticks count as cardboard. These are paper, tightly rolled paper, and that counts, baby. And as you can see, I've made a nice little recessed area of pipes that adds some really cool detail. Next, I'm going to use this hole punch. This is a smaller than normal hole punch, so if you've only ever punched holes for a binder, you won't know about this bad boy, but it is a beauty. I cut a few different little holes, and that gives me these little dots that I can put on as, I don't know, buttons, lights, whatever you want them to be. I got 2 sizes of these hole punches. Both of them I got at Michael's, but I'll try to link them in the description because these are really handy tools. These ones I made almost like little buttons, but you could easily rivet something with this if you had a great desire for punishment. Next I make some pieces with a couple gauges of cardboard tube and wrapping some cardboard around them. I'm just making as much detail as I can here, adding pieces of Q-tip. As you can see, once you have these basic shapes established, you can detail away to your heart's content. So let's add some of these details to the project. I cut into the chipboard here, and this is what I love about this medium. How many things could you just dig into with an Xacto knife at this stage? Not many, I tell you. But so I'm doing something interesting where I'm putting a piece of board in behind. I'm gluing a little piece of chipboard to it so I can put it in and make sort of a backstop so my vent doesn't just fall into my building never to be retrieved. And I push that vent in there, and the fit is so good that it's just a pressure fit. I forgot to put glue, but I don't need to. I couldn't get it back out, so what am I going to do? It's pressure fit in there. I cut a similar hole here for my little indentation pipe piece. This one I did put glue on, and I pushed it flush. I wasn't too worried about pushing that one too far in because that went real nice and slow. But look at that, recessed in detail. I'm happy with that. Next I cut some angled cuts on a piece of this pipe, and by doing so I can make some interesting bendy shapes of the pipe. This doesn't have an elbow corner like a normal pipe, it has this sort of squared off corner. But living in New York, you see a lot of pipes like this, and they're insulated pipes, I believe. They may not have this same coupling appearance as well, so I'm kind of hybridizing here, but you know what? It's my project, baby. I'm hybridizing if I want to. Here's another little greebly bit I'm making by wrapping a piece of chipboard around 2 different gauges of plastic straw, and as you can see, you get those nice varied shapes. A strip of cardboard here. Next thing you know, it's starting to look a little bit less like just some straws and a little bit more like an industrial smokestack or something like that. So here I'm taking a roll of tin foil and folding it back and forth, and then switching rolls to the 25-foot one instead of the 100-foot one, which I realized I was going to be doing all day. But what I'm basically getting at here is I'm trying to get that sweet, sweet hard cardboard tube inside the aluminum foil roll. So I went to the dollar store and picked up a couple $1 rolls of aluminum foil for this purpose, because this tube is fantastic. It's nothing like a paper towel tube. Paper towel tubes will collapse on themselves if you look at them wrong. But this one is like reinforced, real deal, never bent out of shape, good stuff. This is what you want for your crafting projects. So I add some chipboard on there as sort of a flange. And then I decided let's make some railings. The railing method I came up with here uses the hole punch and the Q-tips, and I'm basically punching holes in these 1-inch strips at a uniform length, and then gluing some strips together as side pieces with one in the middle, so my Q-tips can go right through those hole punched pieces, and I'll make a nice little fence. The Q-tips themselves are even handy for cleaning up the extra glue. Next, let's make a tile floor on the top. What I decided to do here was cut this out and have a little bit of detail peeking through, similar to that pipe from before. So I scored it quite deeply so it bends for most of it, but for one square I cut it all the way out. And when I put that on, trace out that square, it gives me the right shape for this detail box that I did much in the similar way as before. I glued that little stick on there so I wouldn't drop the piece inside. And then I recessed my detail holding with a piece of needle nose pliers so I don't drop that inside as well. Once I have my tiles glued on top, I score with a compass to make those indents nice and deep in between them. And then I glue my last tile out over to the side like it's an access hatch that's just opened. That's maybe one of my favorite details of this project. It's just so cool. Moving right along, I'm using a compass now because we're going to add a walkway on the platform. I originally intended that thing to maybe be a smokestack, but like I said, we're making it up as we go along. That's the only way. So I cut out a nice ring-shaped piece, and then I cut a little Pac-Man bite out of the side of that. Double it up because one layer of chipboard is just not enough for a guy like me. And then I glue some girders around at a uniform height to act as my supports for my platform. I make another platform for the top by gluing two pieces of chipboard together, and I glue my platform on. And next I'm going to cut some strips here of chipboard, and what I'm doing here is making some little support girders. So every other piece I cut on angles at the ends of it so that the piece can sit flush against the wall and against the bottom of my platform, and you'll see that in a moment here. Here I'm adding a square of chipboard to the bottom to act as a little support piece, and then I glue those all around under my platform, and you get this nice sort of industrial supported look. And that's a nice detail from underneath, if I do say so myself. I love the way that looks. Gluing some more girders onto the platform that's going to go on the top. This is going to give it again a little bit more of a sturdy appearance. And then I glue that on, jetting out to one side just for a little bit of visual interest. Next I'm cutting a ladder. Guys, this is one of the things that drove me insane about this project. Everything takes a long time when you're cutting. Even if you have a sharp knife, this stuff just takes time to cut through accurately. This ladder, you're not going to believe this, it took me a half hour just to make this ladder. But you know what? It's worth it. Sometimes when you have a challenge, you got to just get through it. Am I right? So when I glue that in on the top there, look how flush that is. Is that ever satisfying? Next I take one of my tinfoil tubes and I add that into the top there. Add a little box on the side. And then I'm Mod Podging the whole project because we are ready to start giving this thing some paint. Mod Podge is going to protect all of this paper from any washes I do subsequently. I add some white glue to the base, and then I add a little bit of my favorite sand. That's right, this is the first thing that's not cardboard that's gone on this project, and it is satisfying to be beyond the hump on that one. Add a little bit of tile grout, and then I Mod Podge that tile grout. What the tile grout's going to do is it's going to add a nice gritty, corroded appearance to some of my surfaces, help break up these nice big flat cardboard bits. And that's really important for a project like this. You can see that grime building up around my little boiler type thing here. Take that outside, hit it with a coat of black paint. As usual, I'm using the tail end of like 3 different black spray cans here, so don't ask me what brand because it really does not matter. Hit that with some brown acrylic and dry brush it with silver acrylic paint. And this is gonna lay the base for my corroded rusty metal layer. It's a really simple technique that has really nice results if you even wanted to stop here, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna use a homemade black wash here of watered down black paint with a drop of dish liquid, and I'm gonna apply that everywhere, getting a nice deep contrast and some mottled black. I'm gonna make a watery orange wash, some yellow, orange, and brown paint. And I'm gonna absolutely slather this piece. If you think that looks too vibrant, you're right, it looks way too vibrant, but it dries a little bit less vibrant. So I'm going crazy here, but crazy is part of the method to the madness, if that makes sense. Maybe not, doesn't matter. But yeah, so I Cheeto blast my entire project here. And you know, at this stage I was a little bit nervous that I might have overdone it, but it worked out, it always does. It kind of looks like a paintball field. Anyways, next I'm going to use this masking fluid. This is latex masking fluid. It's usually used for watercolor painting, but it's perfect for this. Rip a bit of kitchen sponge and dab it in your latex masking fluid. And then go around the pieces that are going to take a coat of paint. And when we peel this off later, it's going to be a nice chipping effect. So I hit a lot of those rusty surfaces, even some that I didn't end up painting a different color, but that's part of the game. And then I come in with a sort of Soviet nasty vomit green color for my tank and an off-white for this feeder tube that's coming in the side. For the main part of the building, I went for a pale blue. What I was trying to do here was I was actually trying to imitate the color scheme on the old Necromunda cardboard pieces that came with those fantastic old bulkheads. And I don't know if I did necessarily nail it or not, but that was the inspiration if you're wondering why I went for this. Next, I come with a stiff old toothbrush and I scrub away, and the chipping medium underneath comes up, leaving me with this nice, natural, rusty, chipped look. And it just gives you a nice, natural area where this would have chipped. So you can come in with some burnt umber with a thin brush and add some streaks coming down from these natural looking places. And this is the start of the rust effect that we're going to do. Next, I come back in with my orangey brown wash and I apply this below all of my chipped areas that have a large area of rust, as if there were a seeping mineral flow that's staining the paint below. And this really helps to tie in the realism and sort of ground these pastel colors with these rusty, filthy metals that I've done here. And it's really starting to come together, but it still needs a little bit more grime. So I'm going to mix up a really filthy black wash that's just thin black paint and water and a drop of dish fluid. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me that disgusting, grubby, overbuilt industrial grime look that ties all of the different component pieces together as one filthy piece of industrial terrain that sells it all together as a whole. And with that dark wash done, I'm going to call this piece finished.
Alright guys, if you enjoyed that video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and consider supporting me on Patreon. There's a link in the video description below, and for a small amount of money per month, you can be one of the host of awesome people who keep me producing this content for you guys, and I appreciate it a ton. Another way to support the channel is through the Amazon affiliate links, also linked in the description below, and you can get some of the stuff I used in this video. There's not too much for this video, chipboard, things like that, but check it out, and we'll see you next time on Eric's Hobby Workshop.